Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is purpose-driven leadership in a world of uncertainty. My special guest is David Chauhan, author of Captain Set Sail, founder of the Nautical Leadership Model, and co-founder of Purple Spark Advisory. David helps leaders navigate change with clarity, courage, and purpose, showing how lead confidentiality in the world shifts and the path forward isn't always clear. So as we embark on a new year and everyone's talking about AI all the time, I think this is a great time to really talk more about navigation and just how we can make the better decisions. So thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Aloha to you and your audience.
Thank you. So to get us started, we like to begin with a little Cliff Notes version, the Dave story, where you were and how you got to where you are today.
I've worked 17 years in corporate world, and a typical traditional way, I've done my degrees, and you get on that on the treadmill, and then rat race starts, and then you just continue pushing your way through, thinking next title, next position, next paycheck. That's what we've been taught leadership and success looks like. But about a year and a half ago, I got to a point where I was finding my work meaningless, and I was finding uh, difficult to just continue being in that being on the rat race. So I decided to walk away from my corporate career. And since then, as much as hard it has been, it has been the most incredible thing that I've done in my whole life, and I wouldn't trade anything for it today.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, being from author to author, what made you decide to write this book? Tell me what it's about and what was your motivation?
Honestly, I wasn't writing a book. Uh, had I known that it will become a book, I might have not even started because it becomes more daunting. I believe in this concept of good enough plans. What you want to do when you don't know what you have to do, but you know where you want to head towards. So you just get your direction right, and then you sort yourself way out, just day at a time, few weeks at a time, and then you push through. So about last year in October, November, like I said, I was struggling to and continue working in the industry, and that wasn't because of any work pressure. That wasn't because of I was facing burnout. It was just that nagging voice inside my head that kept asking me that if this is all about next paycheck, and once you get to a multiple five-figure income, you start asking yourself, okay, what next? Just keep adding zeros to it. And the response was astounding no. So I almost on a week and a bit's notice, I decided to walk away from my corporate career. And coming back home, as you do, you start with all your house renovation projects, the ones that have always been waiting. You take yourself to your biggest home renovation store, and you get every tool and the hardware that you need, and you come back home. And that's what I did. But on the way, I had this good habit of journaling. I started journaling stuff. I started reflecting back on every moment in time throughout my corporate career and even life before that, where I felt unease, where I felt my gut was telling me something, but I made a decision that was contrary to what I should have done, or it really pushed me to the limit of what I should be doing. So I started journaling, and by January mid, works were about to resume. My wife goes back to work. I had this brief manuscript of these vaguely written journals of about 8,000 words, and I started seeing some patterns. I was just trying to decide what I'm going to do with this vomiting of a thing that I've done. It seems like it's telling a story, but I had no idea. So I started thinking, oh, I should put it on Substack or create a website blog or something around that. Um, she comes back home about it was Thursday of the week, and she was a little frustrated that homestay husband who decided to walk away from his career, and she enabled me part way because she said, "Oh, if you won't do it now, it'll get even more harder when you're 50 or when you're 60. So do it now when you can, when you have the choice." So I sheepishly said, "Sorry, I think I might have written a book." that's what I've been doing, locking myself from 5 till 7 in the evening. And you come home and you're frustrated that, why there is no dinner, why dog hasn't had his walk, and why I'm sitting at the same spot where you left me. And but I think her initial response was, as you do as humans, I think she was more afraid about herself, that what's happening is his life spiraling out and our relationship is spiraling out as well, or is there something really deep and meaningful? So on that particular weekend, which was the long day on the 26th, which is 4th of July version of Australia, um, I gave her the manuscript, and after that, 3 hours later, we're sitting there crying in tears that what I've done, it's a crime of a thing, but I've done. And she said, Dave, uh, it's going to be hard, but you got to get this out. Don't stop here. And I was like, but I'm done. I thought this is how far I could come by myself, and I have no clarity in terms of what to do. And from that point, we started reaching out to what became an incredible team, of editors and designers, who polished this work from what that 7,000 words became 70,000 words, 16 revisions later. By the September of this year, we had something, we started calling it as book, and that's how it came out. So really, honestly, it wasn't something that I dreamt about. It wasn't something I ever thought that I will be an author or a speaker ever. I just was living my meaningless life, in a way.
So what is, this nautical leadership model? What is something that our listeners right now can do today that's going to, improve their lives based off what you've created?
So it's not a textbook concept. I've done my MBA. I know there are so many amazing, incredible processes and systems out there that can help you get from point A to point B. But this is not what it is. It came out of something that's absolutely life distilled, and some way, came out of my own life panic. Like I said, I've spent 17 years in corporate trenches, and I remember every time sitting in boardrooms and thinking about everything that I've learned in my MBA program or my engineering program. And you think about, this process can fix this problem, this synergy can fix this problem, this matrix or this thing can help me get there. But when you get in real trouble, when the leadership moment happens, when it's about, life and death, that's when none of that stuff really helps, because they're built to be in a very process and controlled system and controlled environment.
Absolutely.
The one thing the one thing that we are finding now is the word unprecedented has been used so many times in last 5 years or so, that it has become part of common language, like
Right.
unprecedented event.
True.
So, in the world where people think that AI and robotics and economy and wars are going to disrupt, no, it's actually not. It is that lack of control and absolute uncertainty that our world has really developed and will continue to harness more and more, is going to be the biggest challenge for leadership. So from that element, when I looked around, what's the one metaphor that defines and signifies thing that is so chaotic, is ocean. Um, it's beautiful. We are really tiny in front of the whole scheme of, what waters or oceans might look like. And that nautical leadership resonated, that every leader feels like that they have a little ship or a vessel, and they have got the crew. And when you don't know a map, when you don't have a map, which is what exactly the true nautical seafaring looks like, um, that's when it defines that something that's beautiful, like sea is beautiful, ocean is beautiful, how chaotic and dangerous it can be. And your ship, your vessel is as good as your crew is. And you really can't fake it when a strong gush of wind comes, and then it can tip you over.
When the
So
squall comes, when the black squall comes, you have to hang on, right? Buckle down.
absolutely. Absolutely. So from that definition, this metaphor just kept on coming and speaking to me over and over again, and it basically became my go-to way of explaining what I'm trying to say.
So what is the way that when how do we, what is our North Star as we, move forward here? I mean, What strategies can we use today to get the team on the same page so that when something happens, we can all move in the same direction?
Well, in the simplest way, um, leadership is many things. Leadership is 1 million things. There are so many thinkers and amazing philosophers who have come before me, and I stand on the giants of shoulders on of I stand on the shoulders of giants, where we can talk about leadership in so many different ways. But when you start looking at historical pattern of leaders who have really done remarkable things for humanity, you will start observing that some of them have more of one, yet none of something else, but they were still successful. For example, let's talk about charisma. We often talk about charisma in leadership. You will see some leaders were not charismatic, yet they were really good at what they did for humanity. We can talk about these traits. So when you look across and you say, okay, so there are things that you can live without and there are things you can't live without, yet you can be good leaders. What are those things that you really can't absolutely live without? So fundamentally, when you start peeling this layer of onion layers of this thing, leadership, at the core, leadership is basically three things. It is number one, being a beacon, providing purpose anchored in values. They're both really important. People think purpose is everything. No, purpose anchored in values that has to be together all the time.
Yeah.
The second part of it is the whole understanding of how agile, how adaptable you can be, and to have that foresight that how we get there. You have defined the vision and the purpose, but how do you get there? It's not the exact railway track map that's linear, but it's the constant pivoting and shifting, but yet getting where you're supposed to get there.
Yes.
That ability. And the third part is execution, being courageous and decisive and taking the control when you really need to, but also that wisdom to let go of things when you should, because there are others who are better than you in that sphere. So collectively, I started calling this as a Neil leadership model as a trifecta of these three things: beacon, wayfinder, and seafarer. It's
Mhm.
all these three things. And that's the crux of leadership. Now, you can apply it to your own life in a way, because again, you can't lead others if you can't lead yourself to begin with. But effectively, when I apply this concept, and I'll encourage your listeners to apply this concept in any situation, you will find that if there is this trifecta missing, there is something wrong happening in that room, in that organization, in that environment that people are dissecting.
So let's talk about an example for people. So in your daily life, give us a clear example of how you can use this to accomplish, or that are maybe you have kids and you want them to do their homework. I mean, or is there an example you can give us of how we can like apply these principles?
All right, let's look at two examples then, because a lot of your listeners are from business and corporate world. So let's look at a business example, but
Yep.
then let's look at the usual day-to-day life that we see. Um, from corporate world, let's look at the biggest example from most recent times I can think of is Facebook, Meta.
Okay.
So when Facebook started, it started on the principles of that we will do good. We are connecting the humanity. We are bringing humanity closer, and that was the main mission it started with. And you could see in its early age how people championed the whole concept of Facebook, Meta, because it was actually doing good. That was the main purpose and the beacon that they embarked upon, to connect humanity together, especially when we're talking about the big part of the world with lack of access to communication tools at the time.
Yes.
And today,
And censorship and all kinds of things. Yeah.
absolutely, that was
Yeah.
it started against. Um, but over time, you can see that they have started pivoting, and especially in the last 5 and 6 years, we have seen the lack and loss of privacy, how the whole Cambridge Analytica incident happened. You can see that loss of purpose got overly loaded by the noise typical shareholder value brings, the whole concept of shareholder value brings to the society, and now you can see where they are. So company that started with the strongest purpose, is still really good at execution. They're still bringing billions and billions of dollars. They're printing money, and they're one of the most successful companies. The glorified seven companies on the stock market. But because they have lost the sense of purpose, what their connection was, despite the fact they're really good at the other two elements, wayfinder, execution, they're constantly, you know, trying to find new ways of doing things. Yes, they have lost money with the most recent adventure they went with, the metaverse, but yet they'll figure and they'll find their way out. They have got enough resources to get through this. Execution wise, they're still executing new products, new technology. They have, over the past few years, they have done what few of the biggest market captures with WhatsApp and Instagram. So in a way, they're really good at other two elements still, but the purpose part is lost. And what you can find is a general lack of trust people have for Facebook and Meta now.
Yeah. It's the same thing that happened with Google. I mean, when they first started, it was their whole principle was do no harm. And now, I mean, I specialize in digital advertising, and the, 60% of clicks online and even content are fake. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, who is clicking on these ads? And we know for a fact that it is Meta and it is Google clicking on their own ads to inflate their own revenue. So you're 100% right, that, and now it's starting to have a reverse effect.
Absolutely. And in a world, imagine if you and I, we are having this conversation and somebody knocks on my door and they barge in and they essentially go and start stealing my stuff. You will say that's a clear incident of crime. That a crime has occurred where I have been just robbed in, and um but if we look at what's happening with Facebook particularly right now, they know that there are so many scams that are happening. Yet, and there was this number that came out that they are printing $2 billion from China itself. Yet Facebook is not accessible in China, because the biggest revenue that they're generating is because of the scams being coming out of, or being orchestrated in China through China. Now, Facebook knows about it. They can shut this any day down. But because there is that vicious relationship between the shareholder value, and you got to keep, you can't shut something that's profitable, essentially conflicts with your purpose, is what really dictates that you might have everything and absolutely anything when it comes to your leadership and your company's fundamentals, but one of these three things missing, you will find some things really wrong. And
Yeah.
people get that sense of it.
Yeah.
And in your real life, you can see that people often forget, how do leadership start? People think leadership starts when the very first time you walk in a boardroom, on the very first time you get your management lesson in Management 101 at your university, or you learn more about leadership when you get your first manager title and you have got three or four reportees, and that's when your leadership journey starts. But when you look at on a scale of human life, the very first lesson of leadership that that transpires between a human and somebody who's giving, or providing that leadership, is when you're born. When we go in the hands of our caregivers, we just come fresh out of womb, and we get in the care of, whether they're caregivers, doctors, whosoever they are, and that bond of trust that we create for the very first time, that's when we learn what does care mean.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that chapter happening in life over and over again until we go 18, we become independent, we are capable enough to carry our own lives. Maybe that happens.
Just kidding.
Maybe.
For
And
some. Some have some
absolutely,
longer to get there.
absolutely, and some never get there, and that's where you see that failure of leadership that might happen throughout your life, either because of your own circumstances, or because of whatever situation happens in life, because again, life is complicated that way. Whether it happens when we interact with our siblings, whether we interact in a sports club, when we go as as part of our university time. But when we get to the point where we think leadership happens, and I'm talking about typical corporate setup, we actually undo everything that we generally learn up until that point. We because the way current system is set up, it's designed to tell that leadership is a story of titles. Leadership is a story of how more you can collect. Leadership is a story of how wealthy you get, how many multi-million dollar companies you can set up, and that's how we celebrate leadership. So we undo everything that we have learned up until that point, and that's what where we try to understand, okay, so leadership is something else. We need to learn different ways of leadership, because the kind of leadership that got me to this point, that enabled me to be who I am today, I have to undo all that so I can be the kind of leader what society celebrates today. And that's generally, I've lost you, and I think your microphone might have glitched.
I'll unplug it. Let's see. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, it did something really weird there. I'll just go old school. So just to recap kind of what I think I'm hearing, make sure I understand, is that, we're born, and we're, through our lives, we have teachers, we have, people we look up to, we have hopefully morals and things like that. And then when we go into the corporate world today, really what's not praised is moral action. It's more like, what is your bottom line? What are you doing to make sure that we're growing financially? Doesn't matter if it's against principle. Doesn't matter if people get hurt. It's just much money are you making? Is that what I'm hearing?
In a way, yes, that's over. That's a crux of what I'm saying, but more so, uh, as part of leadership, there are so many other micro traits that help us be a good leader. For example, trust, the element of trust. We create real friendships only if there is trust. We are far more trustworthy and far more good at making friendships when we are young, right? Like often we say that when you grow adult, your friend circle shrinks because that lack of trust. And quite honestly, when you're young, that's not transactional. The friendships you create, the element of trust we create, it's far more real. It's far more trusting. So that's one example of saying that how come we struggle to create the same level of trust within our teams and same level of friendship within our team, when despite the fact that up until 18, up until our university years, we generally carry really strong trustworthy networks around us. And because of the fact that we start to lose the honest, the trust worthy connections that we create generally at large up until that moment. That's just one element.
And why do we think that is? I mean, like, and how do we overcome that today? I mean, are there techniques that we should be doing with, like, team? I mean, we always talk about team building and things like that, but is there something deeper here that, even in a team setting, people are still afraid to be themselves because of the environment that we're in? Like, is it fight or
Absolutely.
flight? Yeah.
The biggest factor is, again, there are two ways of looking at it. One is anthropological way of looking at it. My theory is, when we look at thinking, how did leadership start? When we were all living in savannah, we were probably the maximum group of 100 as small little tribes, and there was lack of food, there was lack of protection because we were the nimble species, and there were so many wild apex predators around us. When we think about all this situation, leadership didn't start because we thought we need to raise one person's standard. Leadership started because when we looked around and there was lack of food, we said, whom do we trust more when I have got extra bread and I can give it to somebody that when I come back from a jungle or a hunting spree, that food will still be there. Whom do I trust more that I can leave my wife and kids with?
Right.
And the only thing was we looked around, and generally, for example, if it was you, I will say, um, Anna, it was last time you were really kind to me, or all the previous interactions we have had, you give me everything that I should believe that I trust you. So more and more people did that. It elevated your standard or your status in the society, not as somebody who will draw extract value, but as somebody who will provide care and nurturing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
So when this happened, other tribes started looking at it that, why this tribe is doing better. And they all started coming back to the point. It's you. The one thing that's different between them and or different tribe and us is they have this one person like you who's helping us do better as a collective humanity, as a collective little tribe.
Yes.
But it was easier for them to look at the artifacts. The artifacts were you had more bread. Everyone gave you the bread to then redistribute it evenly. You had better stones or better rocks, a pile of better tools, and they started comparing it with, okay, it must be the things that make you better, the collection of things, the collection of stuff. And 50 generations later, 60 generations later, we forgot that the leadership, it wasn't about that you were wearing a head, artifact,
Brown. Yeah.
crown, or you had a title called chief or whatever the title was in that language. um, it became what was visible, which was more stuff around you.
Mm.
So for others it was far more easier to go and rob and collect this stuff to make that pile bigger, to gain similar level of influence as you had by your own everything else, all other traits that we spoke about, empathy, kindness, all the softer traits that made you the leader who you were. And 100,000 years later, it became the rat race to collect more stuff.
Yes.
Now, that's more anthropological stuff, way of looking at it.
That's
But
interesting.
then we look at
That's very interesting.
and most recently, and when you look at the most recent doing of leadership back in 1960s and 1970s when we were coming out of Great Depression. Stock market was looking for a new way of bringing investors back to the economy. We were looking for how we can really push economy forward. And this great economist at the time, Milton Friedman, came out with definition that purpose for a company is to make money. The only reason for a company or an organization is to make money. And over his 10 years of his work, he added, as long as you do it lawfully. So the manifesto became the only purpose for a company is to create shareholder value as long as you do it lawfully. Now, that's a very flimsy definition by
Yes.
standard because lawfully is something,
Basically means nothing. I mean, like,
it's the lowest standard.
if you look at the tax code, for instance, that's the biggest example I can say of, how there's loopholes for everything, right? I mean,
Abs-
you can be legal and still be completely unethical, right?
abs-
Those are completely different things.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
here's the interesting trivia or interesting tricky part of it. The word lawfully itself is when somebody has already broken a common trust. That's when we need law. When somebody breaks the speed limit or somebody goes too fast, that's when we decide we need to create speed limit of 60 or 70 miles per hour. When somebody steals from somebody, which is again, somebody broke common acceptable society's trust, is when we create lawful definition or a law around it, which means by definition, law is the bottommost acceptable social criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say that leaders have to follow the most minimum acceptable criteria to be classified as members of society, it doesn't work because leaders are supposed to not follow the law. Leaders, by definition, if they're following the law, they're not being leaders, they're being followers of something that's of the lowest standard.
Yes.
Leaders are the ones who create what will become law in 20, 30 years' time. So if the moral code for modern definition of society of success is to create shareholder value by following the most minimum standard that society can create, and everyone is running toward that rat race, we suddenly see why there are leaders who are celebrated with all that success because that's the minimum standard. So you can leave a carnage of dead bodies behind you. You can leave broken families. You can leave broken ecosystems behind you. You can leave broken social fabrics behind you. It's acceptable because you are getting up to the definition of what Milton Friedman gave.
Wow.
And and that definition is inherently flawed. And that's the fight that I'm up against now.
Wow. And so what do you have your book? What else are you doing to try to re-educate or influence this change?
Um, the big part that I've discovered is when you speak with just yourself, you think you're the lonely voice and you're living in a silo. And that's what I thought. Every time I had to make these kind of decisions in a boardroom or say no to a client that has shady practices and I knew about it, I felt I'm the odd one out. I'm not a leadership material. I'm by stereotypical definition. I think this is it. I have reached my peak, and now I'm not. I can't grow anymore. Uh, but just in the last 13 months, I've spoken with so many leaders, at least one or two of these conversations almost every week now, where some of these leaders are coming out and they're saying that we didn't start a company because it was a game of making money or making value and profits for us. I started because I was struggling with this problem and I thought other people had this problem and I wanted to spread the solution. There are so many leaders who are coming out. And again, I can give so many names right now, but the one that the whole world's familiar with is Patagonia.
Mm.
Patagonia has come out, and the family who owned Patagonia, despite the fact Patagonia is still one of the most profitable companies on the planet, they're still growing. Their revenues are growing, and they're vastly successful, and their customers are fiercely loyal to the company.
Yeah, gosh, it just makes me think that before you continue, like my mother. So we've been using Patagonia for a long time. I'm originally from Aspen, Colorado, but one of the most amazing things about them is that they really have this warranty. Like that they will replace this product forever. The jacket or whatever it is. I think she bought. They gave her like 3 new jackets. Anyways, continue.
No, absolutely, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. That that
Mhm.
that spur of the moment that you had when you heard the name, and you want to be associated with the company because your values and Patagonia's value align, and that's the beauty part of it. That's the trust. No one is giving us money right now to talk about Patagonia, yet we will talk about it because the same thing we spoke about, trust. I trust Patagonia, you trust Patagonia.
Yes.
Now, Patagonia is not owned by anyone. Do you know that?
No.
Patagonia is not owned by a single shareholder right now because Patagonia is owned by this entity called Earth.
Mm.
It's owned by all of us, which means every time they will make a decision, they will pass it through the filter of, is my decision going to harm the planet Earth today or in the long run? Because even if it benefits us today right now and it hurts the planet in the long run, and we have to collectively pay more money to fix that part, and Patagonia has to do that part because they will be willing to fix that mistake that they have made. They will say it's actually better to fix it now because commercially too, it will be far more expensive to fix something in 10 years' time than fixing it right now.
It's like they call it the environmental social governance score, ESG in America. It's like, because I do a lot of work in solar and whatnot, but when you evaluate a whole brand, it's like, okay, so I might want to reduce my energy dependency and I might get solar. That's great, but that's just you. What about the people who are bringing, in the trucks and they're delivering your product? Well, that's gasoline, right? Or what are,
Absolutely.
or it's like, or when you think about all the way down the line, like you have now sweatshops in India and they're making the shoes, whatever it is, right? How far is your ecological, environmental, social governance going to really say, are you the brand that like that you're talking about that is in it for everyone, the planet,
Absolutely.
people. Yeah,
Most companies and most leaders treat purpose a- as a marketing statement or as a soft asset. They don't consider it as a primary filter and primary risk evaluation tool. When pressure mounts, they will say, "Oh yeah, the mission creep happened. Yes, we will come back to it later because this is business critical right now. At the expense of long term, we'll rather do something wrong right now." But the true nautical leaders, they know that it's not worthy to get to other side if you have lost your soul on the way.
right.
Most leaders will know that, and that's what is makes them fiercely loyal to their purpose and their values, because they will bring people back to constantly do the right thing, and that thing will define who they are and how they do. I talk about so many examples in the book as part of my thought leadership, but looking at the most fierce examples that we can see, Dr. Martin Luther King, what he was doing was inherently unacceptable at the time when he was doing what he was doing.
Right.
but he did it because he knew what will become the law. Now, if in today in modern world, if we think what he was doing, we will say, yeah, that's obvious. Why wouldn't anybody and everybody else would do exactly what Dr. Luther King was talking about, civil rights movement and all that, that should be there, that has to be there. But it wasn't at the time when he was doing. And that's what leaders understand. What's not acceptable as a typical standard social criteria, yet it's the right thing to do. How do we do it? That's what not true beacon leaders and true nautical leaders do. And we forget the society we enjoy today, the independence, the freedom, the rights, the kind of lifestyle, everything that we enjoy today. I did not earn it. Neither did you, neither people around us. We didn't we didn't really pay what it takes to earn the life we have today. There were leaders who were 2 or 3 decades or 3 generations before us who realized that we needed this. This is what it, and this is how it should be. So it becomes inherently a game of what not you can achieve today, but what you can leave for the next generation. And that's what leaders need
I
to
think that
understand.
we're seeing that as a that's exactly what we're seeing now in America as a for instance of the backwardness, right? That to your point, there were leaders back there that were giving us all these rights and we were moving forward and we were, it was beautiful. And now it's having a reverse effect where, I mean, people in Texas, they're now, I don't know if you know much about what's going on in America, but so for instance, the people can't have abortions, of course, women don't have the right to choose. But beyond that, now there's, people who are going to the hospital for ectopic pregnancies, like where the baby's stuck in the fallopian tube and they're not choosing to provide care for them, so they're dying of childbirth. But there's no baby it's not a real baby because they're stuck in the fallopian tube. So when you say like, okay, you care about life, but then you're not, what about the mother, right? What about she's a wife of someone, she's the child of someone, and of course you might want to have this baby, but not even a real baby yet. It's in the I'm a more specifically focused on this because I had a ectopic pregnancy once, and it's very, very upsetting, when you think you're pregnant and then you realize that the baby is not, in the right spot, right? And one of the number one ways people die in the world. But yeah,
And then absolutely, and it comes from the same mindset of looking at what's acceptable in short-term period. Because what's happening in the US is not that will happen forever. It's not that will benefit the society forever. It is because what's benefiting a few sections of society right now.
yeah, and then you have
And
to wonder,
that's
yeah, well, but so what is the future going to look like here? I mean, is there gonna how is it how what is your thoughts on what's going to happen this year, as or the next couple of years here, because it seems like with all the AI, all the control, and 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 people kind of just scrolling through it, I'll say, does there need to be some kind of uprising? How are we going to get the right leaders back in control? How are we going to make better decisions?
um it's a far more complicated topic, and I think we won't even have enough time to talk about it comprehensively. But let me try to touch few important keystones or key elements. Generally, I think humanity is positive. I'm optimistic, and we have always made right choices because that's how we have gotten up to this point. We have made mistakes. We have gotten few steps back, but generally, every time we have taken 2 steps back, we'll bounce back and we'll take 10 steps forward. And again, same moment will happen. It's like that pendulum swing. We
Sure.
go forward and then we go a little back and then we go forward. So we have gotten to this point where we have made these choices. However, saying that, for the first time in history of humanity, we have gotten to the point of exactly or similar to life altering or world altering shift like we might have faced when we invented wheel or we discovered fire. Because up until now, everything that humanity has created, it has reduced our physical workload. Yet the cognitive ability of thinking and processing stuff has been with us. And we have done that both by managing our brains, our analytical ability, and our heart, our values. We have balanced it and we have made these decisions as we have gone forward. But for the first time, we have something on our hands that will take this ability away from us. And I think that's the scary part because we as species are very young and naive. When you put the entire history of Earth on 24-hour clock, the documented human history will fit in first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Rest remaining 24 hours, 59 minutes and 30 seconds we can't even have any account of. We can't really comprehend that. Other than that, we can see some fossils and we can read a little bit of geography and collect some rocks. We really don't know what happened on this planet. That means your and my life, we won't even register a 1/10 of a second on this clock.
Right.
Yet we think that we have been here forever. No, we are very new young species and we have something that's almost going to disrupt the evolutionary force of how we have gotten up to this moment. And that's the scary part. Because what we are doing this is we're giving this evolutionary force to the same definition what we discussed earlier to few select shareholders, and we're letting them dictate and decide what's going to happen. And I think that's the scariest part because if the definition is flawed, and we have seen this, that definition, how much damage the definition has done just between 1960s and to in last 60 years now in 2025, the average salary difference between an average employee has gone from 1 is to 20 to 1 is to 400.
Wow.
It's so by the definition, am I saying that most CEOs are working 400 times harder than average employee in the company, or they're 400 times smarter or providing 400 times more value than anyone else's time? Like my 1 hour is equal to somebody else's 400 hours. My one life is equal to someone else's 400 lives.
Wow.
That's not possible.
Right.
So if that's not possible, then we should be questioning the modern paradigm of leadership and how we establish. And people might say, "Oh, you're talking about socialist world." No, I'm not talking about socialist world either. I'm talking about pure capitalism, and I believe in pure capitalism, but I believe in the truest form of capitalism that Adam Smith gave. Adam Smith's definition was, and the way he looked at was, that we should have capitalism by keeping money in the society so it's not controlled by few oligarchs. They're not controlled by few people in the government. But when you look at the modern form of capitalism, it has actually gone all the way full circle back to the one thing that he didn't want. Now, few oligarchs, few companies in every society, in every country, there are few handful of monopolies or duopolies in every country who can actually go and control the government.
Yes. The
So we
banks
have
and
gone.
psychology, you're 100% right. And I think, what's interesting that you just said that made me think that the reckoning's coming because AI actually is a disruptor for all of this. Right. It is because there's no one who's safe, right? There's no business model that's safe. I mean, even like, the, the and then once, because there's the whole middle area of people that are like making money and they're happy and they're like, oh yeah, well, AI can replace these smaller minions, right? But it's going to change healthcare. It's going to change, legal. It's going to change all of the, other upper end business types of jobs. The AIs eventually in the next couple of years here are going to be able to do all of that. So then what, right? Then we're going to have what kind of, disruption of what do we do next? Is it our consciousness and our, ability to start to think beyond Earth? Or what are we going to do next, right? Because that's kind of the open-ended question.
It keeps me up at night, Anna. Let's look at the simple facts, basics of what AI will be doing. Even today, the news was that in the US, unemployment has gone to 4.5, right? Generally should be at about 3. It has gone up by 1.5%, and it will keep the president and his whole staff awake up at night because he wouldn't want to reveal these numbers out. 1.5, I'm talking about. AI will disrupt economies where we will see unemployment that will go up to 20%, 30, 40, 50% when we'll be disrupted. Is the first thing in the world, and I hate to call it technology because it's not technology, it's evolutionary force.
Yeah.
It's the first evolutionary force that will disrupt white collar jobs first and then blue collar jobs.
Yep.
And when that happens, we can't comprehend the amount of unemployment we will see in the economy. So right now we are scrambling with 1.5% and we are thinking, oh, that's really bad. We should get somebody else in the power. Think when this replacement will take unemployment to 50, 60, 80%. We'll be up in arms, marching on streets, trying to bring a new revolution and a revolt in every country on the planet. The kind of uprising governments will see is dangerous and is it's unpredictable. And then they will say, okay, we have already tried the model of providing, like in Australia, we all received paychecks during COVID. So we will start something like UBI, Universal Basic Income. But how do you quantify UBI when different economies will be at different scale? That means we will start evaluating human lives based on where the economies are right now and who have got more access to robotics and AI. That means somebody in Kazakhstan or somebody in Bangladesh will be far less of a human than I am here today because my economy and access to AI as collective economy, we have far more than people there. So what defines, how much everyone will get? But okay, let's just forget that part as well. The government's problem, economists will figure that way out. Let's look at the fundamental human aspect of this. One thing that keeps us human is our curiosity to go somewhere and discover something. That's one thing that made us travel all the way from Africa to every habitable continent and place on the planet. And that's pushing us to let's go and become interplanetary species. Let's go to Mars because we want to go and we want to see and be somewhere because it's genetically coded in humans to find purpose and be curious and go somewhere else and find somewhere else. This is the same problem most parents, when the teenagers get 15, feel that should we give them a motorbike, should we give them enough money to go do whatever they want to do, or should we let them earn it even though we can afford to give it to them? Right, this is the thing that most parents will feel, that should we give them a reason to continue learning and growing, or should we just provide them everything on a silver platter so they can be who they are and they are? Imagine if that's the problem for entire society, because we are all getting our UBI paychecks and we're sitting playing video games and smoking weed every day because we can.
Or that's one way to go. Or I mean, so I'm really into. I'm not sure if you're a meditator, but I'm very much in the last year been very into like consciousness and meditation and whatnot. And I think that there was a cartoon that I saw the other day where it was like this woman and she's on the ground and she's doing the laundry and she's you can see she's cooking and someone there's a caption that says AI is going to take your job and she's like when you know because right now it's but there's an opportunity here as well if we can decide that this is evolutionary and there is more to what we are capable of. We are more than our human body. We have the ability to travel through our minds and to be and to grow. And we never had that opportunity until now because we were too busy doing all these other jobs. So we'll see what happens because, but only time will tell.
Absolutely, Anna. And there are two things there right there. One is the me part. How do I play a role in this whole thing? Which is where I have to start from myself. The whole connection with purpose, and I'm not talking about just vague something, religious or spiritual connection, which again, I have huge respect for people can have that concept, but I'm talking about simple biological concept of that, the need for purpose is embedded in our DNA.
Yes.
How? You can see the study that has come out from studies like the blue zones, the concept of ikigai in Japan, why there are so many centurions in this tiny continent of a space, um, because the concept of ikigai makes us live longer. It's not just good food, community, natural environment, everything. It is the connection with doing something bigger than what my life is, that one thing purpose. That's one way of looking at it. But then when you look at the concept, of purpose that came out of work from like Viktor Frankl, and that man's need for purpose is the most, or the biggest need that one can have.
Yes.
um so I can look at this whole situation from that angle as well. That how do I connect with my purpose? That's one way of looking at it. Socially, as leaders, whether you are a prime minister of a country, president of a country, or whether you are running an organization worth $1 billion, or whether you're running a small charitable organization, it becomes your responsibility to make sure that your work is connected with your purpose. Because when AI hits, when machines can do everything, you still will need to get people out of bed. And what's that one thing? Is that purpose power. As
Yes.
a nation, you still have to grow, keep making your societies, your economies better. Is would be that purpose. It won't become a race of how you can produce so many music records, but it will become a race for how you can produce more Mozarts. That one thing, how you can produce more Beethovens, or whatever society needs, the change makers, the ones that will push us humanity to the next level. That's one way of looking at it. But the other biggest factor is economy and the share market and the companies around us. That's something that's not in your and my individual control if we stay individuals, right?
Right.
That's where we'll have to bring the change, where we will start saying that companies that are morally not right for our society, that are doing more damage than what they are saying. And when we take the curtains off, we can see how unethical they are because they're working with the sheer definition of what Milton Friedman gave. Those companies will have to stifle and stop accepting those companies in our society.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing we have to do. Because when it comes to AI, right now we think people are afraid from the fact that someone's going to control my data, somebody's going to take my biometrics and my identity and steal some money and all that. Think about the fact that if five companies can dictate what I will do in my 50th, or when I go 10 years from now, because AI will be able to predict all that.
Yes.
AI will be able to determine your and my future based on our past history and the kind of future opportunities or touch points that we will have in our life, and can merely predict what we will do in our life. It can change political environment, ecosystem, everything around us. And the biggest thing we need to be wary of, when was the first time in the history of humanity we can see when something that was smarter than us stayed underneath us? We have dogs, chickens, cows. We have every another species that somehow are cognitively not as advanced as we are, yet because they are stronger than us, they are bigger than us, they were smarter than us in few other ways. Their senses were better than us in one way or another. Yet we have become the apex predator, not because of anything else, but because of our cognitive ability. And we're just about to hand over these keys to somebody else. And I think that's the scary thought.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're gonna have to wrap up our time. We could talk about this for hours, but
Absolutely.
gonna it's a fascinating time. But I think, it will be. It's 100% right that the most important thing we can invest in today. And I just watched a podcast the other day with the president of Microsoft AI, and he was saying that because they were asking him, it was the Meyer what's her name? Anyways, the podcast is like, what can our kids do? When you have kids and you're like, oh, we thought that they should be coders and we thought that they should be, what are kids going to learn to do now if AI can do everything, right? And he said that we need leaders. We need people in government, and government's gotten the bad rap, but that's the most important thing for us, for the kids in the future, is to really have these strong, to really care about each other and to care about our communities, and that's the only thing that we can really do to navigate the future that is so, I guess we'll call it uncertain. But to your point, it's predictable because we've been doing the same things the same way. But I think that's all going to come to a change now as we kind of step into the unknown.
Absolutely. And I think fear belongs to human centric leadership. Humanity belongs to people who care about humanity and the planet, collective planet, more than anything, more than individual share prices, more than their own worth. Um, People think, and I've seen those interviews where they will say, oh, yeah, they should be all plumbers. No, robotics will take that as well away from you. So I think I genuinely believe that in about a few years' time, we will have kids going to school, not learning about just algebra, mathematics, science, because AI will be far more superior and will be far more smarter than humans by the time. We'll be learning to connect humanity with purpose as quickly as we can. We'll be learning about leadership skills. We'll be learning about empathy. We'll be learning about how we can make sure that we don't commoditize humanity. Because if somebody has opportunity or will have opportunity to commoditize humanity, right now by the stereotypical definitions of shareholder value, they will.
Yeah,
There's nothing who stopping them.
awesome. Well, we have to wrap it up, but tell everyone, how can they get a hold of you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me on whatever platform you are on, or my website, which is davechauhan.com. And I would love to continue this conversation. You said how we can bring the change. The only way to bring the change is with the ripple effect. We start one conversation at a time, one day at a time.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. And please join me to all my listeners next week as I interview another industry expert in topics to help you succeed on and offline. Big mahalo. We're now just over 85,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I could not do that without you and your support. So please subscribe if you haven't yet. Continue to share this captivating content with your friends and family so I can get more interesting conversations to help us all grow. And I will see you next week in the Pixels. Aloha. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Covert Code Podcast. If you're loving the insights we share here, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more digital innovators like you. Share this episode with your friends and colleagues on social media and help spread the word. And if you're in the solar space or just curious about where clean energy is headed, I'm thrilled to announce my brand new podcast, The Solar Coaster. This show digs into the real stories, trends, and challenges of the solar industry, with bold conversations and powerful takeaways you won't hear anywhere else. Follow the Solar Coaster now so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the pixels. Aloha.